Good morning, everyone. This is Dan O'Sullivan with your Bucks Island area fishing report for Saturday, January the 24th. Hey, we've got our usual crowd joining us, with the exception of Gentry, who is actually working today in a continuing education for his job as an EMT. But we're going to check in with Tom, Lee, and Tracy and see what they have to say. And then Gentry's passed on his information to me about his lakes, and we'll be right back with what everybody's got to say. Hey, we keep talking about this. We got Bass Pro Tour that was here smashing 30, 40, 50 fish a day this last week. The Bassmaster Elite Series kicks off February the 5th at Guntersville. We got weather coming in. We got cold. We got all kinds of stuff, but I guess those fish are still going to eat. Tom, tell us what's going on at Lake Guntersville, you big stud, you.
Man, I'm telling you, Dano, it's like a kid in a candy store right now. I mean, and we talked about that all fall and even through the early part of winter where we really didn't have much cold weather, but a few weeks strung in there. But those fish were just very, very active, and those guys definitely exploited that to a lot of folks, and made a lot of people believers in that kind of, in that kind of pattern. And even with those falling temperatures and some of the water dropping a little bit, those guys were still able to follow those fish around. But there were just a lot of fish out there. It was pretty incredible to watch, really. I mean, I was just, some of the things, of course you watch it and you go, wow, why'd they say that? But whatever, you gotta give credit where credit's due. And those guys really put on a show for us. And I think there's just more of the same coming. I mean, it could always get bonked in the head with a hard cold front, but even with that cold wind, that cold air that came in, last week, really didn't affect a lot of the fish. They bit better late in the day, but other than that, it was just Katie bar the door. And it seemed like, in those feeding windows early in the morning, sometime around noon, and then late. But wow, it was just incredible to watch for sure.
Yeah, and they red bladed jigs, red lipless crankbaits. I mean, there were some jerkbait fish caught. Of course, the forward-facing
Yeah.
sonar periods that were there, and that's what won it for Drew Gill on that final day. But my gosh, man, they just caved them in.
And the rattle
Overall,
traps.
what's that?
And the rattle traps as well, that was a big player, Uh, so I mean, it was just, everything that was kicking for sure. Yes.
Yeah, it is. So crappie bite can't be that far off. Those have got to be moving that way, correct?
Absolutely. We kind of lost them there for a little bit when it got warmer. The temperatures warmed up. They followed the bait back out to the main river. That's starting to change. They're coming back into the creeks again. We was able to get on a few last weekend. I expect that to just get better and better as we get closer to the spawn, which is, just a few weeks away.
Yeah, it's kind of a dynamic time of the year. We got that big front coming through, folks. Be very careful this week. If you're going to launch, that boat may not, your truck and trailer may not stick on that ramp very well. So just be careful out there, folks, and enjoy the weekend inside doing a little bit of studying and tackle work.
There you go. If you can't get out, be safe for sure. Stay off the roads.
Thanks for everything, Tom. We appreciate it. Hey, we are joined by our favorite crappie guide and Bassmaster pro type guy, Lee Pitts. We're going to talk a little bit of Neely Henry and Weiss lake fishing. Lee, tell us what's going on Neely Henry. Water moving through the system, a whole bunch of cold stuff going on. Do we go fishing right now?
You can. You gotta use a lot of good common sense and kind of watch yourself right now. With this weather that we're having, everybody's got to bundle up a little bit, and that adds a little bit of difficulty to it when you're trying to run around in that boat. One of the things, you've got so much water coming through, it's finding those little protective areas.
Yep.
If you're going to go fishing, you can still catch some fish. It's not like Guntersville and some of these Tennessee waters that, hey, these fish are eating right now, but they're doing okay. The bass bite has been pretty good. Still catching a few. Once again, you're not going to sit out there on that river, but finding those places that are some cleaner water, look for that. Look for some places that's got a little bit of sunshine in it and it's kind of warming that water up. Biggest thing is look for water temp. With that water temp real frigid and been cold here lately, it's kind of tough to find. Look for rock, some kind of wood cover, and even some of these docks that's got some depth in it, they're holding some fish, but you're going to have to back out and get out of that current a little bit. Our crappie bite is still okay, but the fish is kind of like I listened to Tom a minute ago. We were really catching crappie real good, and all of a sudden that water came through and it kind of pushed everything out, and the
Yeah.
fish that were out there on the river, it's kind of busted them up. So look for the protective areas, try to find some depth, try to find some things that doesn't have a whole lot of current blowing through it, and you can still catch some fish right now.
Weiss Lake's got to be similar. I know that doesn't have as much current, like because it's spread out a little bit more, but it's still something you got to kind of find the areas that work the best, right?
It is, and on Weiss right now, even on some of these places that have a little stain, um, you got to kind of beat on them and stay in there. The crankbait bite's been pretty good. Chatterbait bite's been okay, but you got to find the right kind of water. You can't just get out there on that river with them pulling two turbines and it. Just you got to find a little bit of mix between that stain and that cleaner water. And find some of the protected areas that these fish can kind of tuck into, and just sit on something. That's what they're doing. They're coming in there and finding them a protected place where they're comfortable. They'll sit down. They still got to eat. They're still going to feed, but you just got to kind of take your time and beat around and try to find something that'll hold some heat and slow that bait down. A lot of this, sometimes this time of year, if you're fishing too fast, you're fishing over them. Slow down a little bit, and just make everything be productive.
Brother, we appreciate everything. Lee, have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week, my friend. Hey, we got our favorite son here, Tracy Robinson. Man, he's been around getting his new Skeeter all set up, breaking that boat in. We've gotten to see him quite a bit lately, and that's always a great thing. But he's been out there breaking that boat in and putting a few fish in the boat. Let's talk a little bit of lake. Pause. Let's talk a little bit of Logan Martin and Lay Lake fishing, Tracy.
Yes, sir. Logan Martin, we'll start at the top end there. Logan Martin, it's the whole Coosa River's got a lot of water flowing through it right now, so it's definitely changed the fishing up, and to, from today, Saturday on, the rest of this week, I don't even encourage a lot of people getting out in it, but I know there's some that are, some of these diehard guys, but last week's report may not even be worth a lot this week because it's a huge difference in the temperatures. But last week you just kind of had to get a little bit out of the current there, and you could still get bit a little bit there. Those fish, it's kind of tricky. They're wanting to. We'll talk largemouth first. Those largemouth, they're and the spots are wanting to get closer to that little bit warmer water on the river, but the river's where the mud is, so you're having to avoid that. So I'm gonna call it that tweener stuff. You got to kind of get in between. They're not really in the creeks because that water's too cold, and some of those dead end creeks on Logan, but the river is too muddy. So just barely off the river. Find those red clay banks that are holding the warmth. Find your rocky banks that's got some of the rocks that's holding that sunshine. Flat-sided crankbaits, shad wraps, go down some of those banks. You'll get bit. It's not going to be like it was a few months ago, but there's still fish to be caught just off the river. The crappie, it's kind of the same situation with the crappie on Logan. They've gotten out of that current. There was several places you could kind of catch them out there in the current, which wasn't current a week ago, but now it's a lot of current. But you got to get into that off the river stuff. Pell City Park's a good place. It's a protected, basically a really big cove, if you will, and find some of that brush in there, scan around. Most of those docks around there have some brush out in front of them. But that 8 to 12 foot brush in those protected coves is kind of the key for the crappie at Logan. But not the ideal fishing, but there's still some fish to be caught.
And Lay Lake, we got about 30 seconds left. Give me a high level. What's going on there?
Lay Lake, fish didn't go real far. Some of those grass fish that I'm talking about, I'm not catching that fish right now. The water temperatures crept on down too low for those fish to be up there in that super shallow water. They didn't go real far. There's a few fish to be caught on those channel swings close to those grass. The crankbait slowing down with the jigs. Probably the better bite though, if you're good with the forward-facing sonar, getting some of those creeks and Paint Creek and some of the other creeks down there with the forward-facing sonar, A-rigs, minnows, and chase some of the bait balls. There's some really big bait balls out there. The Coosa River, like I said, still got a lot of current in it, but you can get in those creeks and see some pretty good bait balls and catch a few fish on the forward-facing sonar.
Brother, we appreciate everything as always, and we look forward to talking to you again every week, and we'll talk to you again next week. Hey, usually we're joined by Gentry Gordy. He is in continuing education right now for his EMT work, something that we really appreciate that he does for his community and something we support wholly. So we're going to fill in the information that he has given us on Lake Martin and Jordan Lake. We'll start at Jordan Lake. He said, man, there's been a good stain in that lake with some of the rains that we've gotten. As a result, you're going to have to fish shallow, most likely, and slow. Red crankbaits, lipless crankbaits, medium diving crankbaits, something that you can kind of crawl over the rocks a little bit, crawl around the grass and some of those shallower riprap areas. You can get a good bite on a spinnerbait, especially painted blades right now. That kind of technique is going to help fish see that thing. They're going to feel it, but you're probably going to have to slow down a little bit down on that lower end of the lake. When you get upriver, some of those current eddies are going to be a big deal. You may can wash a jig down there a little bit, something that kind of bounces in the rocks. Those kinds of applications are going to be good. Heavier jigs will get down and stay behind them. 3/4, 1 ounce jigs, 1/2 ounce jigs, those kinds of presentations will be good. That's something that you can do there to be able to put a few fish in the boat. But it's definitely going to be get out of the current, just off of it a little bit. Water's going to be cold. It is going to be muddy. Bright colors in some of your moving baits. Reds are going to be good because those fish are going to want to be eating up on crawdads to be able to get the calcium to develop their eggs right now. Let's turn to Lake Martin. Lake Martin is still got some stain in it in some areas, but it's a big, broad lake, and it tends to clear up a little bit. Those clearer water areas, forward-facing sonar is going to be a big deal, something that you can kind of look and see what the fish are doing and respond to them really well. But in the other areas of the lake, same type of techniques. Some of those brush piles, trash piles as Gentry calls them, those are going to be good with a jig, maybe even a shaky head, some of those kinds of presentations. But the red crankbait bite, the bright colored spinnerbaits, and some of that dirtier water is still going to play there. Obviously, your fish are not going to be quite as big at Lake Martin when it comes to that. You could find some largemouth up shallow. They kind of tend to start moving there first. But staying active, but moving slowly with your baits. Don't get over fast. Don't try to overpower the baits too much. You should be able to get a few reaction baits. Jerk baits will be good in some of that cleaner water along with that forward-facing sonar. But it's one of those situations where because of the cold, because of the current, because of the rain, because of everything that we got going on, going to be a little bit funky to be able to find fish consistently. But covering some water with slow presentations is probably going to be the key. That'll do it for your Bucks Island Area Fishing Report this week. We will talk to you again soon. Well, that wraps up our Bucks Island Area Fishing Report for Saturday, January the 24th. Folks, we thank you so much for being the best part of our dealership. We love seeing you guys around here. And as a result, hey, we put on that event every year. February the 21st, we got Fishfest coming up. It's right around the corner. We're going to have a great lineup of pros. We're going to have a great lineup of vendors. It's going to be something that we love putting on. Every year we do this. We're going on our 8th annual Fishfest, if you can believe that. We love seeing you guys here. We're going to have great vendors. We're going to have the food, the Falcon Wings, the Skeeter Beans. We're going to have the Bass Cat Beverage Bar, and Icon's going to kick something in for us too. And then we might even have a coffee vendor showing up this year that you guys can get some hot coffee and stuff because it is February and it might be a little bit chilly. But folks, pay attention to more information on Fishfest, and of course, come see us at the dealership. We're happy to give you whatever you need to be able to be here. Thanks again for being the best part of Bucks Island.